on CNC line. Totally colors swirling down, let freedom be my guide. Epoxy rivers flowing free across the flag so wide. In a workshop for the brick where art and life collide. Stars and stripes, they come alive beneath my hopeful hands. Grinding down the...
Well, hello everyone. I hope you're all doing well. I know it's pretty cold out there, and so I'm looking forward to staying here in my room, in my warm room, and going through the process tonight. I'm open for questions. I have been thinking about things to do, and as I said in the description, I thought maybe I'd go over, since it's holiday season. I know a lot of people know how to do this, but I'm thinking I should go over how to make Christmas ornaments. I do my Christmas ornaments design, and there's multiple ways to do it. We've shared some of those in the Mark Lindsay forum group there as we've been chatting. But I just thought maybe it'd be helpful to some of you if I shared my methodology, which uses Vectric software. I also use Lightburn and Fusion. Fusion for when I want to do the 3D prints, and I use Lightburn for burning and cutting the actual ornaments. And so hi, everybody that's out there, and I'm glad that you're here. And I see several people showing up now. I've got Mike Walden in Colorado, and Mike Bernasconi and Brooks and others that I've already said hi to. So with that, without any other real questions already queued up, other than Kurt asked if I'd update about my new bamboo printer. And so I'll do that first. Basically, I've been using a Bamboo X1C printer for a while now, as many of you know. And so what I've decided to do is, since that gets wrapped up for a period of time, I want to go ahead and be able to use multiple printers to keep things going when they're not going away. I think they should be going. So I waited till Cyber Monday, actually Black Friday week, and I bought a few more. Hi, Lucky Duck Woodworking. Thanks for showing up. And let me show you what I've got going on. So now I have my X1C, which is in the process of being moved from my upstairs office that my granddaughter is going to take over. And I'm going to go ahead and move everything into my garage. And so that's what the plan is. And let me see if I can share my screen and take a look here. Let's see what we've got going on. All right. And so here's some pictures. See if we can make it bigger. So I've been making bunch of little characters for Christmas. For example, these little sign of dinosaurs, and this one actually stands up. And then see if I can get this thing. Here we go. Get through these other pictures. So this is the beginning of my new P1S printer, which will allow me to have two. And I'm going to have a bunch of AMSs. So this is what it looks like out of the box when I cleared out a closet or a cabinet that had a bunch of stuff in it and relocated it. And so I've put it in there. And then you can see that that cabinet has a spot on the other side there with a knife in it. That's for my other printer, the one that's upstairs, which will be coming downstairs. And I also got myself a filament dryer. And so there is my X1 carbon. That's upstairs right now. And there's a bunch of little reindeer prints I made yesterday for the grandkids. I usually make 4 because it's faster to make 4 at one time than it is to make one at a time. And if you're not familiar with it, then we can discuss why, but it has to do with the amount of color changes and the amount of waste. And you waste just as much filament that you're spitting out to purge it with 4 as you do 1. And so let's say this is a 16-hour print. If I add 3 more to it, it will only be 18 hours. It's not 16 times 4 or 3. So it's a lot more efficient to make multiples if you get a chance. That's it standing up. And there's the dino that I showed you before standing up. So the kids have enjoyed those. Little spider Santa and a... So here's now my P1S. This is the brand new printer, not the old one. And so now I've actually got 1 AMS to it, and I've got 3 more AMSs. So you can see all these AMSs here. I accidentally ordered 1, I think, more than I needed, but we'll find out. And so when I get all said and done, each of my printers will have 2 AMSs, which means I'll have 8 color changes available to me. And if this is extra, I'll actually have 12 color changes available. And that comes in handy when you're doing art projects. Let me take a quick look over here. Yeah, the reindeer is pretty neat. Let's see here. All right, I think those are all the boxes from my shop that have been building up. And there it is again with it all plugged in. And it's just waiting for its neighbor, which I will bring down tomorrow. So all in all, having a fun time with my printers. And we'll let you know more when I get the multiple AMSs on there. So the other thing that I wanted to cover today, like I said, is making ornaments. And what I have in mind is, let's see if I can hold them up, is I've been making these kind of ornaments here that I can print, use my 3D printer, I can use the laser, or I can use my CNC machine, depending how much detail is in it. So let's take a look at some of the ornaments I currently have on my website. And you'll get an example of what I'm talking about. By the way, talking about my website, I saw Steve in the audience. If you want a website, you haven't taken advantage of it, Steve Nealon does a great job, and with Harneal Media, and he has good prices. And so here's an example of my shop that we come right to. And then I'm going to pull up these ornaments, and you can see I have all of these different types of ornaments. One of the things you might notice is that they're all very similar style because I've developed a template by which I can build these ornaments. And so it works out really well and pretty efficient. Like I said, some of them I'm using a 3D printer on, like this one here. Others I'm just using my laser on. And because my laser cuts so fast and with so much detail, and my 3D printer can put in so much detail, I haven't started using my CNC, but I could have used my CNC, and that's what I'll show you today. All right, so the next step then that I want to go into, it always seems time goes flying by when you're in these lives. You think you're having such a good time. Next thing you know, the time's up, and you don't want to waste people's times. Okay, you're not seeing me because I just have the screen up. Let me do it a different way here. How about this? See if this works better. All right, so I put myself up. Thank you, Lucky, for letting me know about not seeing me. I was trying to focus on the printers and stuff. Get rid of my ugly push up there. So hi, Tim. Nice to have you here. So here's the process. Let's go through how I go about designing an ornament. and see if I can do it in a way that's efficient and clear and makes it easy for anybody that might want to do it. So let's start out by creating a new file. And when I'm working with ornaments, I tend to try to, there goes the dog in the background. When I'm working with ornaments or things that I'm going to be transferring over to my laser or my 3D printer, I like to work in millimeters. And I can hear the groaning already for the people that just like to work in inches, but I've found it much more convenient and easier to work in millimeters. So my ornaments are 4 inches by 4 inches, basically, or pretty close to it. And so when I want to build my workspace, what I do is I take that into account and I use 0.125 or 1/8 inch plywood. So here's how I can figure out, if, just as a reminder, if you do 4, which is 4 inches, times M, and you hit the equal sign, that will give you the equivalent millimeters. So that makes it easier. You don't have to do the math in your head or anything else. Now, in this case, I'm going to round that up to 102. And I did the same thing with this. I put 0.125 times M equal, and it gave me the equivalent in metrics. So that's what you, if you're working in a laser, you would have 3mm plywood, for those of you guys that are familiar with lasers. So the first thing you need to do is figure out what your template is. And so that's what I've worked on. And I've got 2 ways I can do it. The first one is I save in an area called templates in my computer, SVGs that I use to design things. I also have actual vCarve templates. So let me bring in first an SVG example. So I'm going to come over here to import a bitmap or vectors, and I'm going to go into my CNC area and come down to my templates folder that I have on my computer. And if I go in there, you see I have SVG versions, and then I have versions for toolpath templates and other things. So I'm going to use this SVG version, and I'm going to say I want a 4-inch ornament. And that 4-inch ornament then comes in at the actual size that I want it. So then if I hit the, wrong thing, Command Z, if I hit the function F9 key, I hit the 9 key is what I did, it'll come into the center. And now I have everything centered for my ornament. So now that I have my ornament centered, I guess my template, so to speak, let's look at what I've got in there. I'm going to go into the layers, and you're going to see I have the following layers. I have the cutout layer, which is this outside circle. I have the whole hook hole. This is for the hook of the Christmas present, and that takes care of that. And then you'll see I have 2 other circles, and this circle here is the circle that I'm going to tie everything to with the design. You'll see that more in a minute. And then this circle is the one I use for 3D printing as a guide, so that when I'm bringing it into my 3D software or Fusion, I get the exact right size. So I'm going to turn these all back on. So that's one way I do it, is I go ahead and bring all of those things in, and then I have exactly what I need to start developing my ornament. Now, if I wanted to, let's try something else. If instead I wanted to use a template, which I also have, I could put new from template. And in my template, remember I told you I have regular templates. This CRVT file, if I hit that and open it up, do you want to save this? No. So now you see I brought that same thing in, but all of this stuff is set up, and it's got it set up in this case as a 1/4 inch piece of plywood. If I wanted it to be a 3mm, I could change that, and it's not that important to me, but I will go ahead and change that to 3. millimeters just for the sake of it. I also want to take this and make it standard so it'll go faster. Hit OK. I'm going to hit the tool cutting will exceed. OK, that's all right. Because the advantage of using templates over just the SVG is that it actually comes in with toolpaths. So because I set it up as a template in the vCarve, it comes in with toolpaths already arranged. And if I come over here, you'll see I actually have a couple additional layers in here. I've got something, this one is extra. I don't need this one. I can get rid of that one. That's a holdover that when I saved the template, I forgot to get rid of it first. This one here is a holdover, one that I forgot to get rid of when I saved it as a template. That's for bringing in a bitmap. And these other ones I'll use. So I'm going to explain how I use each of these, but this helps guide me in my design so that I can stay on track. That's the goal of it. So the first thing I'm going to do is this inside circle guide is only used when I am trying to export this to be able to use in Fusion 360 at this time. So I'm going to turn that one off. So now I have the other layers that I care about. And the first layer that I want to keep in mind is this design section, because that's where I'm going to be making all of the changes on my ornament. So in this case, let's go with a gingerbread man ornament. And I already have a vector. I could use a vector, or if I didn't have a vector, I could actually use a picture and do the bitmap tracing. But since I have a vector, and I think most people know how to do that, since I have a vector, I'm going to bring over that vector into my design. So these are vectors that I actually purchased from Etsy. And the reason I purchased them was I wanted to make earrings. And I've got some material that look like little gingerbread materials. And I will be making earrings here in the near future that I can give away or sell to people, etc. And so I'm going to delete this one here. I don't need it. So let me delete that. This one here, I'm going to group together so it doesn't get all goofy on me. Okay, let's do it one more time. Let's group it, hit G and group that. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to center that for now. And now I have it centered. And I've got, the way this is going to work is you want your design here to overlap in at least 3 areas so that when you weld it and do the operations that you need to, you will have the outside holding the inside in. So that's where we're headed. And the way I'm going to do that is the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this grouped file. And I know if you go look at this from using this, that this circle here is 75.5 millimeters, 75.5 millimeters. So I'm going to hit close, and I'm going to take this design right here, this group, and I'm going to resize it. And you can see it's 30.197 by 38.502. So I'm going to take the biggest one, which is in the Y direction, and I'm going to change that to 76 millimeters, slightly bigger than that circle. I'm then going to take this drawing, keeping it on the center line so it's pretty centered, and hit close. And now what you see is I have this right here overlapping with this ring, which is what I want to see. Let me look over at the questions. Okay, nothing critical yet. So now that I have this overlapping, the first thing I want to do is I want to move this to the design section. And I'm going to come up here now, and I'm going to go ahead and make the design section my primary area that I'm working on. And I'm going to take this Cookie Classic and I'm going to delete that so I don't get confused later. So now this drawing is on this design section. And I'm going to take this one right here and I'm going to move this also to the design section. So, and you'll see why I separate the inner vCarve later. So now I have all of this on the design section, which is the ornament. So Brooks, you said centering maybe to the inner circle. Yeah, you could do that. You could do that. And if you did that, this is what that would look like. So you go here to here, and then you go ahead and center right there, but that didn't quite work the way I wanted it to. And the reason primarily is because of how this relationship works. And I tried that earlier and it didn't work the way I wanted it to, so I stopped doing that. And now that I have it like this, and this is on center here, that's what I care about most. The next thing I need to do is I need to ungroup. So you can come down here and ungroup, or you can hit U. And if you hit U, this should all still stay on the design, but I noticed that it did not. And so since I want to make sure, because I'm looking at the color, so I'm going to go ahead and move all these vectors. Once again, watch the vectors to make sure they don't move in a way you don't expect them to. Okay, so now we're all in the design circle. Once we have this design, then the next step is making this so that when I cut everything, that this is connected to this outer ring and will be held in place. So our scissor tool works best. And I'm going to go ahead and cut right here and cut right here, cut right here, cut right here. All this should all have cut, and I don't, it moved again. Let's get Control Z, Control Z. Let me go back and back out here because it shouldn't be doing that. All right, so let's try this one more time. All right, somehow this inside circle guide had turned on, and so it was confusing because it was having double vectors. And I'll have to go back and look at the video and figure out how I made that happen. So we got the design section and we have this section. And now we can go ahead and be able to use the scissors. And notice that I've got this defaulted. That's not what I want. I want it on design section. I was trying to point that out before. And so now I'm going to come in here, click here, click here. Click the outside first, and then the inside. And because now I've connected all those, what that means is that when I cut this out, that this here will be connected, this design will be connected to this outer ring, and everything will be held together. And so let's go through the process and show how it works. So the first thing I want to do is I've already got the cutout and the hook guide, and I'll go through those a little bit later. The first thing I want to do is I want to, for the design purposes, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to change this now to inner vCarve design, and I'm going to select it because those are areas where I'm going to actually vCarve the design because I don't want those cut out. Now you could cut those out and cut through the ornament, but I think it looks better if I just carve it. So I've done that, and I'm going to come over here now to the vCarve toolpath, and I'm going to go ahead and make my flat depth 2.032 meters. You can make that whatever you want. Basically, what I did was say I wanted it 0.08 inches times M equal, and it came up with 2.032, and that was for a 3mm ornament. I'm going to use a 1/4 inch groovy 30-degree V-bit. For those of you that are familiar with cadence manufacturing, I'll just use that 30-degree V-bit. I'm going to use a down cut so that it doesn't fray the plywood. I'm using 1/8 inch plywood. So I want a down cut for my clearance bit. And then I can go through here and I can select, because I've been putting them on layers, I can select the inner vCarve design, hit associate with toolpath, and hit close. And I'm going to call this inner vCarve. Now this didn't seem to take, so let's see what I did wrong. And this is what you always want to look at. So I know what I did wrong. Can you see I left this on the design? So it did not move over to the inner vCarve. It's empty. So I'm going to take and move this to layer, inner vCarve. Now you can see it designed. So now I can go over here, select inner vCarve design, hit calculate, close, hit calculate. Yeah, yes, Lucky. Lucky said, will your process transfer to Lightburn with acrylic as a material? The answer is yes, and I'm going to show you how I do that here after I get the design done in the Vectric. I'll show you exactly how I would do that. So, the advantage of Windows on your Mac. So now that I've got this done, let me show you how this looks. So I'm going to preview the inner vCarve here. And what I'm going to do to make it so you can see it, let's go ahead and make it white. And let's make it a different color just because you can see it better with its yellow. So we make it yellow, come over here, hit yellow. And so that's the gingerbread man faces, etc. So the next thing that I need to do is I need to cut these sections out. So that will be my next one, is I'm going to do a profile path. And I'm going to go to Z. And then I'm going to go on the inside or left as you look at it. And I'm using a 1/8 inch bit. I will use the Jenny compression bit right here. Because we're working with plywood, the compression bit will work better. Give us nice clean on the top and the bottom. And now that I've got that in place, inside everything is good. Let's look at the inner cutout is what I want right here. So I need to change these vectors, move these to inner cutout. Move this one also to inner cutout. And let me select that as the default. It's not that important you select it as default, but just to stay on top of things. And so now this is the inner cutout, and I've got Z here, inside, select the vectors, and I'm going to take it from here to inner cutout. Hit close, and I'm going to put inner cutout here. and calculate. And so now when I preview that, you can see the inner part of the ornament. Then I'm going to move this one down so I don't lose track. And I'm going to move this one down so I don't lose track. And I'm also using that 1/8 inch Jenny bit, as you can see right here on both of those. Hit close. And I'm going to cut the hole first, and then I'm going to do the outside of the ornament. Let's go ahead and preview it. So now you have a 4-inch ornament. And if you wanted to, you could make it double-sided by using a little jig. Before you cut it out, you would do the nose and eyes and face. You know, you would do the facial features and stuff. Then you would flip it, do that again on your vCarve, and then you would do the whole thing on the cutouts. So that way you can get yourself a double-sided ornament or a single-sided, whichever you prefer. If you did single-sided, the advantage of that is, if we come over here, you could put personalization on the back. So you could actually put a personal message or a year or whatever wanted. Or you could do the same thing with smaller text here. But on the CNC, it's a little harder because, you know, the tips, you know, the V-bit tips won't necessarily always work as well. If you put Aura Mask on here before you did all this, then you could have actually paint the eyes and all of these design features and everything else. Now, some people would prefer to have a little sharper corners here, and you can do that not as good as you can with the laser or with 3D printing, by doing the simple thing of, instead of taking these inner vCarve, let's duplicate, I want to, not inner vCarve, this inner cutout, I'm going to duplicate that. So instead of doing that with a 1/8 compression bit, I'm going to add a little bit to this. I'm going to add 1 meter plus 1 millimeter, I should say. And I'm going to select, instead of that, as many of you know, I like to use my tapered ball nose, that really sharp one, for wood inlays and other things. And so I can use that. And the reason I went +1 is to make sure it cuts through. Otherwise, you might not cut through as clean. Tells me it's cutting through. Yep, I know that. And I'm going to go ahead and run that without even bothering to do anything else. Now, if I wanted to, so you can see it's sharper if you take out these little pieces now. And you have a little sharper, crisper corner. And I'll hit Reset Preview, and I'll do the whole tool path without the V bit, without the Jenny bit. And let's preview it. So there you see you've got a 4-inch ornament, and these are sharper cuts because the tapered ball nose can get in there. That makes sense. So now the next question that was asked by Lucky is, and I wanted to talk about, is you have this as a CNC file now. So how do you get it into the laser so you can do it on acrylic or any other medium that you want to? So the next way is you take this whole vector set, leaving the layers the way they are, because now it's all set out as layers for you. And you're going to do one of two things, depending on whether you're taking it to the laser or you're going to take it to Bamboo to print, or Fusion to make a bamboo print. So the first way is you take it as an SVG. And you take that SVG and you save that SVG wherever you feel comfortable saving it. And in my case, I have a Lightburn support, and in there I have a file of Christmas related stuff. And then I have ornaments and other things. So I typically take it in, and I will just, for this example, I will go ahead and take it to, let's see if I have my ornaments down here. So I have my ornaments. I got Gingerbread Man, and you can see that's where Gingerbread Man, Rev 1, even though they're the same. That was me practicing before. I'll hit save. And then the next one I want to do is, and I'm going to put it in the same spot just because it's going to go there easier. I'm going to export it instead of as an SVG. I'm going to export it as a DXF. And I could use the same thing if I wanted to. In Lightburn, but I prefer SVG. So this is going to be a DXF file. So now I have this saved as an SVG and a DXF file. I'm all done with the Vectric part of the software. Have a good dinner, Mike. Thank you. So now I'm going to close this out. I'm not going to bother to save it because I already have this file saved. By the way, if I wanted to save that as a template, I could have saved it as a template, and then I could have pulled it up together like I did before. So now that I've got a okay, Kurt is asking what's the runtime. It's pretty fast. Let me show you. Let me show you, Kurt. I'll have to open it up again. So here's my Gingerbread Man ornament that I made earlier today to try to make sure my computer worked right. You've got all these paths, and if you use the so you can see it says it takes on my machine about 2 minutes to run, and this has got both of the tool paths in there for cutting out whether I use the tapered ball nose or whether I use 1/8 inch. So about a little less than 2 minutes to run on my machine is what mine is estimating. Now mine may be a little faster than others. You can see I've got it running at 190 millimeters per second, 1.1 scale factor. So that may be off. If I just did a 1 scale factor here, I didn't change it at all. Let's see here. Inches per minute is what mine actually goes at millimeters per second. That's why I have it in there. So I hope that answered the question. Just a few more than a couple minutes, Kurt. It runs fast because it's so small. It's only 4 inches. It takes you longer time to change the tools. Now, we had Lightburn called up, and that relates to Lucky's question. So I open up my Lightburn, and then what I do is I come over here to import SVGs and go find the SVG that I imported, and that's this one right here. So I come in here and I open up that SVG. It's already at the right size. It's going to be a little more than 4 inches, or 101.596 millimeters, as you can see here. That's in the tall, right? Because of this extra hump here. So this is already set up in the format that I normally use. And this is how I normally do it, Lucky, is I actually create them in Vectric because of the ability to use that cutting tool. But now it's pretty cool because now Lightburn has that trimming tool. You can see there's a scissor over here, and that was a change about a month ago. They added this section in here, and now it's making design in Lightburn much more like Vectric, which is pretty cool. All right, so now let's go through this, and this is the cutout. And if you look at that, that's over there. So I need to move this down. This here is the inner cutout. So that's in a good spot. And then this one here is your fill. And let's see what the fill position is. So this looks pretty good for my laser. So now everything is set up for me to run this on the laser, whether it's wood or acrylic. You would just have to change your settings for those of you that run lasers to be able to do that. And if we play this, you can see the first thing it's going to do is it's going to engrave all the features. Then it's going to cut out the inside. Then it's going to cut out the hook. Then it's going to cut out the outside. And just that quick, you now have a laser ready ornament that you can cut. So I think that that is pretty cool. Any questions on that? Let me get rid of that. So the next thing I wanted to talk about is some of you have been getting into 3D printers like me. And so that's a little more complicated, but it's not really very hard. So I'm going to call up Fusion 360. Now, if you have Tinkercad or something else, you could use that. Fusion 360 is opening up, folks. It sometimes takes a little longer to open than other programs because it's all running off the web. Okay, so this is Fusion 360. Again, you could use Tinkercad. Anything that you can create bodies and form to, you can use. I use Fusion 360 because that's what I'm used to. Out of habit, I always take it and I first save it. And I'm going to call this gingerbread ornament for live. So I know that's what I'm doing here. And then what I want to do, you're going to see where that inner circle comes in, and knowing the exact design of that is I'm going to go ahead and create a sketch, is how you always start. I like to start here on the top. I'm going to create a circle, and I want a center diameter circle. So I'm going to put it right there on the center origin. And if you recall, from my Vectric one, I said that center circle was 75.5 millimeters. So I have that in place. So the next thing I want to do is I want to go ahead and insert that DXF file. And I'm going to show you why I go with DXF. Let me first do an insert SVG, and then I'll back out. So insert SVG. I'm going to go to my computer. And you remember that SVG file was under Lightburn Ornaments, Gingerbread Man, and there's the SVG. Hit open up. And you see the size challenge with the SVG. It's not coming in even close to the size. So that means you have to move this up and mess around with it quite a bit. And I'm going to hit cancel right now. So instead, if I do a DXF file, insert DXF file, I go to the select the file, select from my computer, and I use the Gingerbread Man DXF versus SVG. I open that up. Takes a couple seconds to open. And if you look at it, you can see it comes in with the right size. So then I take and I move it up here till I'm matching exactly. See how I've matched up with that inner circle that was there? And once I've matched that, then I know I've got the right size. That's more important on the SVG, and I know that everything's in the right location. I hit OK. And now I've got everything I need to start making this ornament. Hit Finish Sketch. Then what I will do is I will take, for those that are familiar, and I'm going to start selecting the sections of the sketch. Well, basically, it's all of it for this first part, except for the centers. I don't want those parts, but everything else I want. I'm going to hit Extrude. You hit E for Extrude. And then I'm going to go down because I want to keep this sketch visible. So I'm going to go down. In this case, I'm going to go down minus 2 millimeters. Hit Return. And I really didn't want to do that. Let me get out of that. Do that again. I'm going to take all of this, and you'll see why later. And I'm going to deselect this, hit Extrude. I hit R, by the way. I just screwed up. Hit Extrude. Looking at the screen and not my wasn't looking at my keyboard. I was looking at the screen. Now I'm going to hit, oh, this over here. I'm going to hit Extrude now. I'm going to go down minus 2 millimeters. And I didn't want new body. I wanted new component, and I'll show you why in a little bit later. Hit OK. All right, so now I've got this body, and I come over right away. You don't have to, but I do. I want to rename it. And I'm going to say Ginger Body. Hit OK. So the next thing I want to do is I want to get the design of the eyes and everything else because I want those to be a different color. So one of the things that Fusion does is as soon as you make your first body, that sketch disappears. So I opened it up and I opened the sketch so I could see it. And now I want to get the details of the face and the bow tie and everything. So I'm going to hit Shift. I'm holding the Shift key down so I can select these different features. And I'm going to hit Extrude. And my printer, I set it up at layers of 0.2 millimeters each. So I want at least 3 to 4 layers of color to fill in. So I'm going to put minus 0.8 at 0.2 millimeters a layer. And I want a new component. This is the trick. You want another new component, and you're going to see how this works in a few minutes. So I hit OK. And so now this component is, I'm going to rename it to Design. So I now have both of those names. Then I go in here to help me later. I'm going to put Appearance. I hit A. I'm going to put Favorites, and I'm going to make this outside just for kicks, I'll make that mahogany. So I'm going to take mahogany and I can either put it right here on this outside, or I can put it over here on the ginger body. And you can see it colored it for us. So then the next one is a design. I'm going to take this white and I'm going to put it right here on this component, two separate components. That's why it was important to make the two separate components. So far, everything good? So the next thing that I'm going to do now is send this to my printer. Now, I have found that the Bamboo printer and the interface here is a little finicky. So I'll give you a couple ways to export it. So you can export this as if you hit export, you can export it as a step file. That works good sometimes. An object file, that works good other times. Or if you get lucky and the design is simple enough, like this one is very simple, you should be able to take this whole design and you can do that, or you can come over here and just click the main component up here and come up here and 3D print export. And so we export it, and I'm exporting it to my Bamboo Studio. And let me do a quick preview. So that shows you the mesh file that's going to be going to my studio. Hit OK, and it will actually go right in. Let me shrink this over here so I can bring that on screen. So you can see that will actually bring it into my studio. And it's going to ask you, this file contains several objects positioned at multiple heights. Instead of considering them as multiple objects, should the file be loaded as a single object having multiple parts? And the answer to that is yes. So now that I've got that in there, you can see the kind of the different colors right here. And these will be based on whatever you have loaded inside of your AMS, or if you need to, you can load them as individual colors at various points. And the way you change these colors is by changing over here. So in this case, if I wanted to change that color to yellow, I would actually, I'm shortcutting here, folks. This isn't really how you do it. You'd have to change the printer filament to be that color. But for now, let's just make it that color so you can see. And what you would do then is, once you have this, the next thing I do, because I want this to be a nice clean print, a textured print on my plate, I rotate it 180 degrees. And when I do, you can see if you rotate the plate, there's the face, right? What that means is when I print this, so then you would slice it, and it tells you, because Kurt asked before, this is going to take me 35 minutes to print on my Bamboo printer. All right. And because I've sliced it now, and I can send it to my printer, I won't do it because I've already done that. Then after 35 minutes, you will get something that looks like this. Okay, so that's 360. And so Brooks basically asked, is looking cool Fusion 360 only online? Yes, it's only online, and it's a subscription, but they also have a free version or a hobbyist version that you can use as long as you aren't using more than 10 active files. And what that means is 10 active files means you have all the files you create, but you can only have 10 that you can play with at any given time that are active. And if you decide you want a different file, then you just make some of the other ones inactive. So you don't have to spend a fortune on it. Now, it is a fairly expensive subscription if you get the Whammerdine big version, but you can use it without actually getting into buying an expensive subscription. And there's also free versions of similar programs you can use, such as Tinkercad. You can also do this whole process with your 3D printer if you're really good at Adobe Illustrator, Affinity Designer, or any of those other software programs where you can make SVGs or DXF files. If you're familiar with those, you saw all I did was take in the DXF file into Fusion 360, and I was able to play with it. And you could do the same thing if you're good with those other graphic files. I've not taken the time yet to learn Adobe, and I don't want to pay its subscription price. I have Affinity Designer, but I haven't taken the time to learn it yet because I always drift towards Vectric because I'm so used to working with vectors in Vectric. And, you know, I tend to drift towards the things that make it easiest for me to get to until that won't work for me anymore. Then I learn something new. Any other questions? All right. With that, I want to thank you all for coming to the live stream. I'm going to put a detailed, I was in the middle of working on a video that demonstrates these processes. So I will be putting that out in the next couple of days just because of the time of year. I think it's something that people can use. And I think it's pretty straightforward. There's a million people out there putting videos on it. So, you know, watch whichever video will help give you the best guidance for you to make it work. But trying to streamline your processes and use it. What I haven't done is I've done a bunch of these on the laser. But what I haven't done is actually cut them on the CNC because I haven't had a need to because I've had my laser. But it should cut just fine on the CNC. But I don't have any to show you. I've got tons of laser ones to show you. I did. But I haven't tried to cut them on the CNC just because it's not something I need to do. All right, with that, thank you again for watching. And I hope you have a great night. And we'll catch you next time. Take care.